You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
Yeah. So to kind of talk about that in another way, we all have different glasses that we're wearing, kind of proverbial glasses that we're wearing. And so if I'm wearing glasses that are tinted red and my spouse is wearing glasses that are tinted green, we're going to be looking at the same thing and we're going to be arguing because I'm like, no, it's red. And he's like, no, it's green. It's because we are coming from it with differing perspectives, with differing views and beliefs about what we're seeing or what should be. So in every relationship, even when some of the more significant ways in which we interact with the world might be similar, there are going to be expectations, desires, needs, viewpoints, worldviews, mindsets, whatever. There's lots of different words that the two people in this relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, are going to be different. And so a lot of times what I've seen is the arguments, the conflicts actually can start because I have my red glasses on, I'm seeing everything is red, and I don't actually understand and believe, I don't even recognize that somebody else sees things differently and that they have a different expectation of what should happen. So I'm arguing, I'm like, well, you didn't do this thing. Like, you're stupid. Like, what the heck? But that never even crossed their mind that they would even consider doing that thing because it doesn't fit their framework. So unpacking, like, what are the beliefs around how the relationships should go? And I know I'm using the word should because we all have expectations. We got to unpack that first and understand, like, what is the starting place of the expectations and the beliefs that we have around the relationship itself. That's kind of the foundational thing to do. So ask a lot of questions. We ask a ton of questions around it. So not only can we understand it, which I think is helpful, but the most important thing is that the people in the relationship, or at least the one you're working with, because you can still do relationship work if you only have one person, help them understand, where are they coming from? What are their expectations of how the relationship should be, or the other? How do they want the relationship to look? Just kind of asking questions to unpack all of that. That is like the first place to start. That is step one.
And just to add to that, and what it also encompasses is their role in the relationship. And what's been surprising for me on the business side and personal side, people have put very little thought as to their role. Now, we all know, like, if there's a husband and wife in a relationship, like, that's a husband, that's wife. But in the world, like, it used to be that, and if you go past a couple of decades, the roles were more clear. Because especially let's look at it from a Christian point of view. If you're a conservative Christian, you lived a few decades ago, you know what the man's role is, what the woman's role. But in the modern world, that's shifting more. Men and women are both working. They both have aspirations, ambitions, and all sorts of things. So it creates a shift. So it's surprising how little people have thought about that role. And also, it's not just that in business roles. So in partnerships in business that they haven't thought enough about their role within the partnership and somebody else's, or even their employees at times. So it goes back to the expectations sharing time. How can you expect something if you don't know what the person's role is, and within that role, what the responsibilities are? And so understanding how they look at the other person, understanding what they see their role and their own role, are they clear about that? And when you start to ask questions, explore that, you see a lot of lack of clarity there. And that is the coaching process. You don't need to know much about relationship coaching. You just help them clarify the process. And by the way, if you don't have a lot of experience in intimate relationships, you're a younger coach, and you might be doubting, like, well, how can I help somebody navigate this if I've never been in? Or you're an older coach, but you have never been in a relationship. Know that you've been in some kind of relationship, and you can leverage that as a starting point. And your ability to deal with that will actually help you. But also, you can just ask questions about their own world. Be curious as to what, because your job is not to project what you have versus pull out what they need to clarify themselves.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So as our I see our main function as a coach to help bring kind of the hidden things to light so that our clients can then choose what they want to do with that. So that's all we're doing in step one. Ask a lot of questions, help build out the picture of what they believe, especially when they're not entirely sure on the surface what they believe. They're still functioning based on beliefs. They still have these embedded, whether they cognitively recognize them or not, they're still in there. So we're working on helping them kind of rise to the surface. So once there is clarity on what are the expectations, the roles, the mindsets around how these relationships work from their perspective, step two is then help your client or clients understand where things are misaligned. Because when my husband and I are in sync about how we parent our kids, there's no arguments. There is just conversations that are constructive, and we get to, we make decisions very quickly because we don't have to hassle or hash out, disagreements and differing perspectives. So if there's no misalignment, there's probably not going to be conflict. So in my perspective, the fact that there is conflict means there's misalignment. It means that there's difference of opinions. Now, I think an important thing here to make sure that we are keeping in our mind as coach is misalignment doesn't mean one person's right, one person's wrong. Because that's easy to fall into. Misalignment just means that there's two things that are kind of not quite seeing each other exactly the same. So that's the job for number two, is the second piece of the framework, is helping them understand and see and verbalize and recognize where that misalignment is happening.
So can I give a quick example of that? Because it's
Yes.
actually happening right now in my life. So we're actually, we're planning we have already planned the trip. So we're going to Florida for the next couple of months, starting next week. And so it's funny how our perspectives are so different. I'm excited about moving from one place to another. I tend to do a lot of the external thing. We have a motorhome I'll be setting up. She's dealing more with the kids and organizing all their details. So for me, it's exciting to move from one place to another, even though it's work involved. But for her, it's a hassle a lot of times. So we were talking about, okay, where to live. So if as soon as I would mention, like, we're staying only for 2 days here, and then it's like, why are we moving here so fast? I'm like, well, because it will be fun. It'll be adventures. We get to see it. It's like, do you not consider the fact that I have to work through this with the kid? And I don't. That's not the first picture that comes to me. The first thing that comes to me is, well, I'm going to pack up the RV and I'm going to do all this stuff. I can do that within a couple hours, but I'm not really looking at what she's, because I don't know her experience around it. She has to describe it to me. And then when she describes it, like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, now maybe we can find a middle ground there.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.